to the Tuesday Night Touchdown Podcast with your hosts, Reese Downing and Jacob Workman.
What is up, everyone? Tuesday Night Touchdown Podcast, NCAA edition. It's going to be a little bit of an abbreviated episode here. Obviously, we only have 4 games. If you listen to the last one where we picked, 43 bowl games or something like that? So
something crazy, yeah.
Yeah, so now we're just doing the quarterfinals. It's going to be really quick. As you can see, there's a couple people on the screen. So one is Scott, our beloved Notre Dame faithful. He's joined us quite a few times. And a new face down at the bottom, Ryan Rabarchek, also known as Dr. Beavis. He is also a Notre Dame fan. I don't know why every guest on the show is a Notre Dame fan, but that seems to be how it goes.
That says something about what our friend base looks like.
Yeah, I mean, they're still playing. That's all we can say. All right, we're going to jump right into it. 4 games. It's going to be pretty fast, honestly, rapid fire. We are kicking it off with the college football playoff quarterfinal at the Verbo Fiesta Bowl. Number 6, Penn State, is an 11.5-point favorite versus number 3, Boise State. State Farm Stadium, Glendale, Arizona, 53.5 is the over-under. Tomorrow, Tuesday, December 31st at 7:30 Eastern on ESPN. We'll kick it off with Scott.
Yeah, I think Penn State is a no-brainer on this. It's another one of these ones that all the people pontificating complain about the blowouts and the team that shouldn't be there. But, yeah, definitely Penn State going away.
Beavis.
I mean, this is I don't know if it's going to be a blowout. I think that Boise State is, they're a solid team. I mean, Genty should have won the Heisman. We can get into that on another time.
Yes.
He's a tough runner, but that's going to be the best front 7 they're going to see all year. I mean, I know they played Oregon tough. I mean, Oregon had to kick a field goal with, 3 seconds left to beat them. So I think it's going to be closer. I don't think Penn State covers, but I think they're going to still win the game.
Reese?
Yeah, so a lot of the notes I've got here kind of align with that. Penn State looked really good in round 1, especially on defense. They held SMU to 253 yards in total offense, forced 3 turnovers. They also rank 6th in the nation in rushing defense, which could pose a challenge to Boise State. Boise has been battle tested a little bit this year. Beavis just talked about them. It took a field goal for Oregon to get them at the last second. So I don't know if Boise gets the outright W here, but Penn State doesn't have the offense that Oregon does. So I'm going to take Boise in the points here to keep it at least within 10.
Yeah, to me, this one's really interesting because I've actually been a huge fan of what Penn State's offense has become this year, but I still just don't know if I can trust them in a game. Like, big games, it was a little different in the SMU game. I feel like they were a little overmatched in that one, but this is just one to me that I don't know. Boise is one of those teams that with the extra preparation, I feel like they're going to be bringing everything they possibly can in this game. And Genty is Genty. Like, I don't think you can contain him, to be honest. So, I know Boise State down the stretch had a few games where their offense was a little lackluster, but he still had his game and he still ended up winning the games for him. I'm not sure if Boise State wins, but I am with you guys on the cover. I don't see how Penn State can win this one in a blowout fashion. Next, the college football playoff quarterfinal at the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. Number 5, Texas is a 12.5-point favorite versus number 4, Arizona State, Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, Georgia. 51.5 over under Wednesday, New Year's Day at 1 o'clock on ESPN. Scott.
Yeah, I love watching Arizona State. Got to watch them in that championship game. Yeah, they're just a lot of fun. They got a chip on the shoulder, but they don't have the talent and the resume to hang with the big boys. So I think maybe next year, as they get a better roster all the way around, a little more depth, a little more top-end talent. But I love watching them play, but I just don't think they're going to come close today or at the bowl game.
Beavis.
Yeah, I think this might be the most lopsided game, but I don't think it's even going to – I think it's one of those weird situations. I think that Texas will probably cover, but I think it's going to be lower scoring. I could see something like a 24-10 win for Texas. Scattaboo, I think, he's an old-school throwback running back. I love watching them run with him. Without that Tyson kid that they had at wide receiver, he caught like 3/4 of their passes all year. He was their one breakaway threat. I just don't think they have enough firepower to stretch Texas thin. I know Texas's defense is supposedly really good. I don't think they played at an elite level, consistently. But I just don't see Arizona State being able to win this ball game.
Reese.
Yeah, I kind of reiterate what Beavis and Scott both said here. I think one of the potential things that could make a difference here is Dilly, right? Dilly goes in, he's going to have these guys fired up and ready to try to prove something. I just don't know if they're going to be able to last through 4 quarters. And not having Jordan Tyson out there, I think, is also going to be a disadvantage. Longhorn defense, top 10 on both sides, both rushing and passing. I think it's just going to be a little too much for the Sun Devils. So I've loved watching Dilly and Arizona State play, but I am going to take Texas here to win and cover.
Yeah, I'll be the opposite. I'll take Arizona State. I love this team. I've watched them all year. I love the way they play. The motivation will be there. Texas, to me, is still one of those teams that's not as good as they look. I know on paper they look great, but if you go back and look at last year and look at this year, they've played so many teams that have had backup quarterbacks, and just situationally, they haven't been tested that. I mean, I know they're in the SEC, but their test has not been what people think it's been. They are not that great of a team. I think Arizona State can go in there. I think Arizona State can actually win this game. I would give Arizona State a better chance to win than I would Boise State. So I'm on Arizona State plus the 12.5. A little later in the day, the best game of all, and the best stadium of all, it's college football playoff quarterfinal at the Rose Bowl presented by Prudential. Number 8 Ohio State is a 2.5-point favorite versus number 1 Oregon at the Rose Bowl in Pasadena, California. 55.5 over under Wednesday, January 1st at 5 o'clock on ESPN. Scott.
Yeah, I think this is by far going to be the best, most competitive game of the day, possibly even the entire playoffs. I've heard them describe this as already the championship game just in the second round, which is disappointing, but that's how we got it. I think Oregon has not as much talent by a small margin, but Ohio State's just been disappointing at times. They came out and set the world on fire against Tennessee, just absolutely destroyed them every which way. But then they've also had the Michigan lost, and they already lost once to Oregon. So I'm going to go with Oregon prevailing, and just sit back and watch this one, enjoy it.
Ryan.
Yeah, I mean, I'm an old school purist. I mean, I love seeing those old school Ducks uniforms there. I'd get rid of all their. Give me the traditional Big Ten, Pac-10 Rose Bowl. So I like to see that. In basketball, college basketball, we always say it's hard to beat a team 3 times in a row in a season. In football, it's hard to beat a team twice. And I think that, Ohio State looked motivated when they came out and played Tennessee. I don't know if that's going to necessarily carry over at the same level. But I think that they have more talent than probably any other school in the playoffs, just in terms of on paper. I don't trust Ryan Day at all. But I think they can and they will go out and likely win this game. I would take them to even cover by kicking a field goal or something like that to get over the hump. So I got Ohio State in this one.
Reese.
Yeah, I mean, to me, Will Howard looked really good in the game against Tennessee, but that was kind of an outlier game for him. I don't think he's not been able to perform that well throughout the entire course of the season. I do think Chip Kelly's probably going to get a little bit more creative in this game. He's probably going to be a little bit more aggressive, maybe throw some more wrinkles in there. But to Beavis's point, I think the X factor here is coaching, and Dan Lanning is one of, if not the best motivator in the country. And Oregon has had a couple weeks to be able to prepare for this Ohio State team. It is difficult to beat the same team twice in a row, but I think it's going to happen here. So I'm taking the Ducks plus the points in this.
Yeah, to me, this kind of goes back to like the Washington-Oregon last year. Like Oregon was favored against Washington the second time, and I still don't know why. It doesn't make any sense to me. And kind of in this game, it's the same thing. Like I don't understand why Ohio State's the favorite in this game. Oregon, if you go back and watch the game they played in Eugene, I mean, it was a duel. Like Will Howard had a great game. Jeremiah Smith had a ridiculous game. So did Ibuka. I mean, the stats were crazy. Like there was no real mistakes on either side of the ball, other than Ohio State did have the turnovers. That's what lost them the game essentially. But like you just said, with the motivation of Dan Lanning, the extra time, it's the Rose Bowl. Like I think this is going to. I mean, I know Ohio State fans travel pretty well, but we saw what the stadium looked like against Tennessee. I think we're going to see a lot of green in Pasadena, and I like Oregon to win this game outright. So I will be on Oregon. One that you guys will definitely have some interest in, the very last one of the weekend, the college football playoff quarterfinal at the All-State Sugar Bowl, number 7 Notre Dame versus number 2 Georgia. Georgia's a 1.5-point favorite at the Caesars Superdome, New Orleans, Louisiana. 45.5 over under Wednesday night, January 1st at 8:45 Eastern on ESPN. Scott.
Well, I think actually the point total might actually be a little high with the defenses that both these teams bring and the suspect quarterback play at times. You know, they got the new quarterback backup for Georgia jumping in there. Yeah, he had an all right second half. But he had to come out of the game for the handoff to be made for the win. Notre Dame, yeah, the passing game is suspect at best. You know, they have an explosive run offense, but yeah, that's right into Georgia's strength in that defensive tackle. He's going to be back, so you know the challenge is going to be there. Injuries have all season taken a toll on Notre Dame. Just a cumulative effect really makes me worried about where this game is going to end up. Um, I have the most questions about which way this game's going to go out of all four of them. I'm going to pick Notre Dame just because I'm a homer and I own it. But yeah, I also could see this turn into an old-fashioned blowout that Notre Dame suffered against the premier teams, and back to the drawing board.
Ryan.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'll completely own that I'm, you know, a diehard Notre Dame fan, but I'll try to take that hat off for a moment and try to look at this. I mean, obviously, Kirby Smart had, you know, time to prepare with this new quarterback. I mean, he's not, and when we talk about this, this is Georgia. I mean, this isn't some slouch program. I mean, even a backup quarterback's still going to be a good kid. I mean, he's just not going to have the experience. I don't know if Notre Dame even fared better if Carson Beck was playing, just because of maybe the limitations on his physical attributes in terms of maybe moving around in the pocket. I think that gives Notre Dame a little bit more problems that way. I think, you know, Notre Dame's going to look at it, and Al Golden's going to say, you know, we're going to challenge them. We're going to load the box. We're going to put our secondary out on islands and hope that they can survive. Georgia's receivers are nothing to be scared of. They drop a whole lot of passes. I think one of the X factors, though, I think is losing Riley Mills for Notre Dame. I mean, he had come on when Howard Cross went down in the middle of the season, and really starting. No, I'm not piling on you here, Workman, but starting that Florida State game, he just kind of flipped the switch. I think he went out and got 3 sacks in that game, and he's been a different player ever since. Maybe some karma for him punching that USC player, but he's out now. So I don't really like that at all. I think that, you know, I think people look at this as kind of a typical traditional Georgia team. They don't run the ball as well. I know Etienne's good. I think it's going to come down to really Notre Dame's offensive coordinator. I think Mike Denbrock is going to have to call a great game, and knowing Riley Leonard's limitations. If he calls a great game, I think Notre Dame wins, and they win probably decently by like 10 points. You know, if he tries to throw Riley Leonard out there and pulls a Brian Kelly, and we're going to go out in a hurricane and throw the ball 50 times in the middle of a hurricane, I think then Georgia's going to romp in this game. So I think if it comes down to special teams, if it's a close game, Georgia's got this with Jeter's injury and whatnot. But I think as a fanatic of college football, you know, I think Vegas has got it kind of like as a pick 'em, 1.5 points. But my heart says Notre Dame, so I'm going to pick Notre Dame.
Reese.
Yeah, I'm on the Notre Dame bus with the boys here. Georgia and Etienne are going to have to take advantage of Riley Mills being out and lean on the ground game, but I honestly think the ground game matchup may be even more important when we flip the script. If Notre Dame looks at how Georgia Tech attacked Georgia at that game to end the season, and then add a couple wrinkles into the passing game to where Riley Leonard's not being leaned on too much in the passing attack, and they can keep the ball in Notre Dame's hands and lean on that ground game with Love and Price and Leonard. I think Notre Dame can win this, and I think Notre Dame can win this by more than a touchdown, depending on how things shake out, especially because Gunnar Stockton, to Beavis's point, decent quarterback, but he hasn't had any experience this year, and we've seen how having quarterbacks thrown into situations that are this difficult can run out. So I'm taking Notre Dame here to win the game outright.
Yeah, this might come as a surprise, but I actually put a bet in last week for Notre Dame to win the national championship. I love the way that the bracket lines up for them. I think that they can win this game easily. I'm a little different than you guys, though. I think the key to this game is Notre Dame's defense against Gunnar Stockton, because if you go back and look at Stockton, he was very inaccurate, and I think Notre Dame can hold him in check and running. I mean, I know that's been something they've struggled with a little bit, but if that's all they have to worry about and if they focus on it, I think they're going to be just fine. Notre Dame secondary is very good. I'm honestly not worried about Gunnar Stockton in this game. And I think Notre Dame can do enough offensively to score. Georgia has not impressed me much this year at all. I love Notre Dame's path to the national championship here. And honestly, I think they're going to be in the national championship game. That's going to start by beating Georgia here. So that is it for the 4 games we're picking this week. Reese, you pulled up the bracket real quick. So judging by our little consensus, well, we didn't really have a consensus other than Notre Dame, I think. So Notre Dame will be moving on, according to us, playing the winner of Boise State, Penn State. And then we'll have Oregon, Ohio State winner playing Arizona State, Texas. I'd love to see an Oregon, Arizona State, and a Notre Dame, Boise State. That would be my dream next round. I'm sure Notre Dame fans would love to hear that as well, and probably setting up for an Oregon, Notre Dame national championship. I think that would be a key for everyone. I think everyone would have a good time with that national championship game. All right, Scott, Ryan, thank you guys for joining. Notre Dame wins. Obviously, we'll talk about having you guys back for the semifinal if you guys would like to rejoin. Maybe we can get some of your other Notre Dame brethren on that couldn't make it this time. So
I'll bring the leprechaun.
I'm willing to come back anytime and talk ball. I really enjoy listening to you guys and hearing insights. And
sorry you came on an episode with 4 games. That
Hey, I mean, I could draw some bowl picks too, or stuff like that. You know? Hey, we'll keep it going. We got some more games on up ahead of us, and
that's right.
Get some picks in there. So
yeah, and it won't be long. We're talking transfer portal nonsense, unfortunately. But
that's already started. I think all the crazy stuff. I just saw the stuff that what they were talking about. UConn was
tampering.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and then you got even NIL stuff I mean, I don't know how much you follow
Florida State basketball. Yeah,
that's turned into a show today. So, but
yeah, it's a crazy world in college sports right now.
Yep.
All right, but we will wrap it up. If you're watching live, we'll be back live with the NFL episode here shortly. So for Jacob Workman and Reese Downing, our guests Scott and Ryan, we will see everyone in. I'm not sure what date the episode will be for the college football playoff semifinals, but we will see everyone then. See ya.
Thanks.
Cheers, guys.